So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Teen Titians. So let's start the series. Sasuke Uchiha and Hinata Hyuga were given a B-rank mission to recover a teleportation scroll that had been lost somewhere in the Sunagakure deserts. Since some of the shinobi who had been searching for the scroll were still wandering the deserts in search of it, their mission was changed from C to B. It appeared to be a typical day with lots of sunshine and no clouds in the sky. Sasuke started to feel restless 2 hours after they landed at the country of sand. "Have you found anything yet?" he asked, being careful not to glare at the more restless girl. Although he disliked pushy girls, he also disliked girls who stammered. However, she was at least not as boisterous as Sakura or Ino. "I think I found it. I see a large aura of chakra about 2 kilometers from here," Hinata said, a little breathless from the continual running they did, as she looked at him with her Byakugan still activated. Sasuke just accelerated since he was eager to finish this assignment quickly and wasn't built for C or D missions. If he wanted to get stronger and murder his brother, he required an S-ranked mission. Hinata shouted out, "W8, and fought to catch up with him. They arrived at the location Hinata mentioned quickly, and behind a big boulder that had been protruding from below, the scroll had been buried in the sand. Sasuke had barely had time to turn her head before she grasped it and said, Sasuke dash, as she felt a lot of chakra coming their way. When she noticed that Sasuke had already struck the alien shinobi in the face, her eyes widened. When he yelled, "Behind you," the heiress turned to find a kunai coming toward her. She dived and then slammed her palm into the other's chest, which made him stumble backwards. Unfortunately, both bandits were difficult to beat, and when Sasuke and Hinata witnessed them exposing explosive tags under their clothing, their predicament deteriorated. When Sasuke's adversary began making hand signals to set off the bombs, he realized there was only one way out, so he opened the scroll and followed the hand signals that were imprinted on. The final command on the scroll was the location they wanted to be teleported to. Hinata stepped aside when she caught a glimpse of a third ninja coming from Sasuke's right, who was too preoccupied with finishing the jutsu to notice. Hinata interrupted the prodigy in a panic when he had just completed the final sign and was about to mutter the word Konohagakure. "Jump!" When Sasuke jerked his head in her direction, all he saw was a dazzling white light that surrounded them. The longer the battle went on, the worse things were for them. Cinderblock and Plasmus work well together, it's just a shame they were the adversary. Robin yelled, "Don't let Plasmus get a hit on you," as she swerved to avoid an oncoming light post. Unfortunately, Cyborg was too glued to Cinderblock, and before he could fire his cannon, Pink Goo rushed at him from behind, effectively rendering his cannon inoperable and causing him to stick to the asphalt. As Plasmus threw 2 more globs of goo at Robin, Raven used her power to lift the light post and hurl it in his direction. Regretfully, the light post just sank into his pudding-like skin before firing it out, throwing Raven to the ground. Before being caught off guard when a car rammed into her, Starfire came down from above and fired many starbolts at Plasmus attacks. Robin then removed a number of explosive discs and flung them in Cinderblock's direction, successfully capturing his attention. The 6th Titan used this distraction to guide the shapeshifter on a floating rock as Terra and Beast Boy approached from above. The changeling jumped off the rock and he grinned as he called, "Rock on." Terra used her abilities to split the ground beneath Cinderblock in 2, and the giant attempted to flee the fissure, but the elephant that slammed against him only sped up his fall, leaving only Plasmus behind. When Beast Boy emerged from the crack as a falcon and realized that his resolute commander was already engaged in combat with Plasmus, he transformed back into a human and prepared to help him. However, a bright light arose in the distance, and then quickly disappeared. He said, "Dude, did you see that?" Terra tilted her head and said, "Yeah, do you know what that could be?" Then they both smiled simultaneously, sharing the same thought. Foreigners. And Martians, not just any aliens. "We'll be right back," the two vivacious titans called to Robin, who appeared to have the situation under control as Plasmus collapsed onto his back. They had to traverse several intersections, and the Green Titan's keen vision allowed him to spot two figures at a dead end with ease. As they rushed into the dead end, Terra exclaimed, "Wonder if they are Martians," and the shapeshifter laughed. Even though he felt self-conscious about his appearance, he remarked, "I actually wonder if those Martians are really green, at least then I wouldn't be the only one stuck with this color." Terra taunted, "Hey, I gotta warn you, I like green guys, you might get competition," and he blushed a little as he laughed. However, as soon as they got to the finish, they stopped, their faces bewildered. "Terra? They don't really look like Martians," Terra said, "they're humans, Beast Boy," and they both leaned slightly in closer. A male with raven hair and a girl with indigo hair were both unconscious as they lay on the asphalt next to one another. Terra said out loud, "How did they get here? And what happened to them?" And Beast Boy offered her a theory. "Don't you see? This is just like those sci-fi movies on TV, they come from the future," he remarked, altering his tone slightly to seem more serious. Terra, "I'm not sure," and looked at him doubtfully. Beast Boy maintained his argument by saying, "Look at their clothes, I don't think you'll find something like this anywhere in Jump City, or anywhere at all actually," and Terra sighed. "Maybe they get to themselves when they get enough rest," Terra proposed, and the changeling agreed. "How about we first bring them to the tower?" While Terra merely lifted the earth beneath the raven-haired boy and carried him in this manner while she floated on a rock herself, Beast Boy transformed into Pterodactyl and used his talons to pick up the short-haired girl before lifting into the air. Terra and Beast Boy made the decision to go to the tower individually after realizing that there was no adversary or friend at the battleground. When they arrived, they put them in the infirmary to relax, and they had just left the room when they saw four irate eyes. Raven snarled softly, "Where have you been?" Before Terra and Beast Boy touched their lips, Robin said, "We nearly lost because of you." "Shoo! Seriously?" Cyborg exclaimed, shocked. "What the dash?" Both of them simultaneously exclaimed, "They're resting." "You gotta be quiet." Starfire questioned, "I do not understand, who is they?" Beast Boy said softly, "We found them in an alley, they were knocked out," and then he opened the infirmary door, letting everyone in curiously. They saw that neither of them knew what they had dreamed about, yet they were both still in dreamland. Sasuke said, "Itachi. Where are mother and father?" as icy terror took hold of him. Itachi then turned to face him with his Sharingan, his bloodlust evident in his eyes. As Neji said, "Give up, Hinata, I see you're suffering because of the main branch of the Hyuga clan." Hinata was able to smile in spite of the pain. She gasped, "No, Neji. You are the one suffering from the clan, from being a branch member," before Neji snarled angrily and delivered the decisive blow. However, no one stopped him this time. Both of them simultaneously opened their eyes, with Sasuke sitting up right away due to the shock of his nightmare. With her fists clad in black, Raven exclaimed abruptly, "Stay back." "What? Why?" a bewildered Robin said. She said, "Robin. Look at their eyes. They are no normal humans, and upon closer examination, Robin saw that the boy's eyes were crimson with an odd pattern visible inside, while the girl's eyes had veins protruding from the sides. Sasuke's heartbeat and breathing gradually slowed as he observed his surroundings. Konoha wasn't here. When Hinata instructed him to leap, they must have gone somewhere else. He heard her anxious voice, Sasuke, and turned to see the other individuals in the room before settling down on the indigo-haired girl wearing the cloak and giving her a savage gaze. He had no desire to fight. He needed to return to Konoha. Sensing the level of animosity aimed at them, Raven stepped back. "This boy, he's not one to mess with," she muttered, as Cyborg turned to face her. "What do you mean? You okay?" "Nothing's okay if you get on his bad side. I sense a lot of negative energy coming from him, and a lot of power. He's a dangerous one," she said quietly. "Were they planning something with them?" Sasuke squinted at them. "Were they adversaries?" "Well, they definitely weren't shinobi." He grumbled and asked, "Where am I?" Robin, who didn't understand Japanese, said, "What did he say?" "I may know of a way." Starfire began, wishing to recommend that he learn his language through lip contact because being Tamaranian made this possible. Cyborg interrupted the alien as his forearms started to glow and yelled, "On it!" "Where am I?" Sasuke yelled, and Hinata winced, thinking this was some kind of jutsu. This was her final attempt to utilize words before attacking. He raised his voice, and she said, "I think they don't understand us, Sasuke. Where am I?" When his voice was captured in English, Sasuke arched an eyebrow in confusion. How was his voice altered? "Did you use Jinjutsu?" Sasuke made the decision to take action and, frightening everyone in the room, stepped on his bed before drawing a kunai from his pouch. "Jump!" This time, it was the hooded girl who said it, not Hinata, and Sasuke froze, giving her a curious glance. Raven said, "You're in Jump City," and Hinata mouthed the words slowly. When Sasuke realized that he could no longer handle the confusion, he jumped off the bed. For Titans were already prepared for war, their swords drawn. For a moment, Sasuke remained motionless and looked out the window, but then his eyes grew wide when he saw the tall, metal structures reaching the sky. Hinata hesitantly followed him as he disregarded the others and gazed out the window before speaking in a voice that was a little unsteady. "Hinata." Across the horizon, a city with lofty buildings was divided by a body of water. This was the city of Jumps. When you said, "jump," we were teleported to another dimension. When Uchiha said, another dimension," Hinata's eyes widened. Before hurling the kunai in the direction of the hooded girl, Sasuke turned away from the regrettable scene in a fit of mute rage, maintaining his angry gaze on the four heroes. Raven sent the kunai back at him without even moving to stop it in mid-flight, and Sasuke stopped it with another kunai. "Hinata," he snarled, and judging by the tone of his voice, she prepared herself by turning her palm toward them. Beast Boy tried to defuse the tension in the air by saying, "Guys, don't you think you're taking this a bit too seriously? They don't understand what we're saying, that's all," but his words were met with silence. Raven narrowed her eyes at the two teenagers and shouted, "He just attacked us." She felt an odd energy emanating from them, which concentrated in their hands. What was this? Who were they? "Cover me," snarled Sasuke as he began to make hand gestures, and Hinata sprang at the half-robot with a palm full of energy. As Cyborg aimed his cannon at her, Raven threw a vase and a drawer in her direction, but the girl simply smashed through and struck him in the chest, tripping him. Sparks shot out of his cannon. I can't move, she messed up my internals somehow," the half-robot moaned as he attempted to activate his internals. Fireball Jutsu. A flame erupted from the boy's lips unexpectedly, and Hinata leaped to avoid being struck. The side wall tore apart and floated in front of the Titans, protecting them just before it struck. Terra motioned to them with a glowing hand and shouted, "Calm down. We just want to talk." "We are not your enemy," she replied. What did she say? Sasuke stopped caring. Perhaps they had switched them to Genjutsu and they were still engaged in combat with the shinobi. He performed another series of hand signals, but Robin intervened and hurled a disc at him. Before a blinding light flooded the room, Sasuke leaped backwards. Seeing his opportunity, he attempted to utilize the scroll to get home, but it was not there. The scroll dash. He heard a roar of rage very near him, and he used his arm to stop the staff that was directed at his face. "Where do you come from?" Sasuke grinned as Robin snarled and produced another disc. He smirked and asked, "Is that all?" before punching the boy Wonder and sending him flying. Unfortunately, he had already thrown the disc, so Sasuke had just time to alert Hinata before jumping in her direction and fleeing through the opening in the wall that Terra had created. As the brilliant light gradually faded, the four Titans prepared for another round, only to discover that they, Beast Boy, Terra, and others were no longer there. Raven snarled, her hand glow fading, "Seriously? Someone gotta give Beast Boy and Terra a timeout. Cyborg, can you install a translation system in our communicators?" Robin requested the half-robot, who was slowly regaining most of his systems. They didn't look really like enemies, more like lost. They said they wanted to get home, right? Robin got a perplexed face. Cyborg said, "Leave it to me," with a slow smile and nod. Concerned, Starfire said, "And what will we do?" "Terra and Dash," he reasoned, "we'll try to find out as much as we can about them. The more we know, the less likely it will come to a fight," and Raven moaned. She merely prayed he was correct. Sasuke and Hinata, meanwhile, were racing down the streets in search of the scroll that had called them here. Is it possible that those 6 individuals possessed it? Every street had the same appearance, and Hinata's Byakugan served no purpose. He sighed angrily, "We have to find the scroll, or we'll never get back home." Hinata gave him a worried look before they saw a big shadow looming over them. They took a step back before deciding to fight after looking over their shoulder and saw the blonde girl and a green hawk gliding towards them. They were unable to flee. Sasuke narrowed his Sharingan at them as the girl stepped from her rock and the hawk changed into a green boy before falling to the ground. He couldn't possibly lose against them. Terra smiled and held out her hands to demonstrate her innocence. "Easy there, guys." Unfortunately, Sasuke was unimpressed and pulled out his windmill shuriken this time, enjoying their startled look. Terra said, "Okay, I think he's even more untrusting than Raven," just as her hands began to glow yellow once more. "Sasuke, wait," Hinata said, putting a hand on his shoulder after glancing from the girl to Sasuke. He gave her a quick look and sneered before she started to move slowly and Sasuke had to stop or risk injuring her. Beast Boy grinned and walked up to the girl, saying, "Dude, I think she got you," before clumsily and slowly offering her his hand, luring Sasuke to cut him in two. After a few moments of cocking her head and smiling, the changeling chose to introduce himself. "I'm Beast Boy. Beast Boo Dash." He halted in disbelief when he felt her hand encircle his and gave it a slight shake. "I'm Hinata, Hyuga," she said, grinning and somewhat flushed. "So I guess you're really in the wrong place," the Green Titan said to himself before his smile appeared to widen. Hinata was oddly charmed to that upbeat grin. She pointed to Sasuke and said, "I'm Terra, and you are," but all she got in return was a sneer. "Where do you come from?" Terra questioned, assuming that based on Hinata's name, they must be from Asia. "Hinata, don't waste time," Sasuke mumbled as he turned away, already growing impatient, but she chose to try her hand at figuring out what they were asking. "We come from Konohagakure, and we want to return home," she said, observing their perplexed looks. "Konoha," she repeated slowly, and they blinked at her. "Konoha," they both said simultaneously, and Sasuke turned his head and took Hinata's arm. He angrily said, "What are you doing? Are you trying to sell us out to the enemy?" And Hinata shuddered as a result. But, Sasuke dash. The timid girl closed her eyes as he went on, "They were attacking us," before Beast Boy made the decision to intervene. "Dude, cool off. We're not gonna hurt you." However, before he could launch his windmill shuriken, Sasuke gave him a fierce look, and Terra extended her shining palm as though to challenge him. Sasuke didn't move when she said, "I haven't heard of this place before, but maybe you could tell us how you ended up here." "I don't want to hurt you," she added, fisting her palm in case he threw that thing. After a few period of stillness, Hinata understood that they truly had no intention of hurting them. If they had, they would have done so already. Hinata muttered, "We came here," after Sasuke opened a teleportation scroll, and Sasuke snapped his head in her direction, glaring at her menacingly. "They don't look like they want to hurt us, Sasuke. They didn't attack us," she said, smiling, then repeated her earlier statement more slowly, "Scroll." And made motions with her hands as though she were holding the handles of a double door and opening it. Beast Boy speculated, Are you looking for a door?" "Like a building," but when he gestured with his palms toward a roof, Hinata shook her head. This time, she opened it and feigned writing something. Before Hinata made a random hand gesture to signal executing a jutsu and Sasuke was ready to go when the changeling snapped his fingers, Terra guessed, a book, and pretended to turn the pages, but she shook her head once more. He smiled, imitating Hinata, and she nodded her head slowly. "Hey, I know, it's just like in those martial arts video games. I beat Cyborg in one of those once. It's a scroll, right?" he said. "Hold on, because that implied that the two had to be." Terra blinked in disbelief as he exclaimed, "Are you telling me that you are real ninjas? And ninjas? For real? Man, I thought ninjas were legends. I've played every single ninja game that came out on the game station. Please, teach me how to do all those cool moves. I want to get those hand signs down. I'd do anything," Beast Boy begged, his excitement almost unbearable, and Sasuke winced. Why was he so reminded of Naruto by this green boy? Before Terra put a hand on the changeling's shoulder and said, "We might not know where this Konoha is, but we could show you where we found you," he mumbled, "Shut up." Terra grinned and began to walk. Was she aware of Konoha's location? Sasuke disregarded Beast Boy and pursued the girl before Hinata followed suit. Beast Boy scowled because he disliked being disregarded and changed into a bloodhound to pursue them while deliberately glancing at Sasuke as he passed. This man believes he's hot stuff. Let's check it out. Sasuke's eyebrows arched in frustration. So what? He can change into animals. Is there something to boast about? This was undoubtedly another Naruto with whom he became stuck. When they arrived at a dead end, Terra gestured toward the ground in front of her. She pointed to them after saying, "Here is where we found you," and anyone could tell she was referring to them. However, the scroll was nowhere to be seen. When Sasuke noticed that they were pointing toward the exposed asphalt, his hands curled into fists. Was this a prank of some sort? "Let's get going." "I don't have all day," he growled to the Hyuga, and Terra gave him a disapproving glance. He needed the scroll, and those two children were only getting in the way. If they couldn't help, he might be better off without them. He needs to learn how to have fun. But, Sasuke, we don't know where to look for the scroll," she said quietly. Sasuke teasingly said, "And you think they can find it? They don't even know that we were shinobi," before turning to go, anticipating Hinata's arrival. After receiving a disapproving glance from Terra and Beast Boy, the shapeshifter turned to face the Byakugan user. "Hey, Hinata. If you want, you can hang out around our place. I don't think you can afford any hotel, right?" she said, looking at him worriedly as he apparently still wanted to find the scroll on his own because he hadn't turned around. "Forget about him. He probably doesn't know where he even lost it," he laughed. Terra assisted with the translation until Hinata's expression changed to one of comprehension. "You know what? How about you have some fun while you're in Jump?" the sixth Titan proposed, and Beast Boy immediately accepted before both of them grabbed her hands, making the girl uneasy due to the closeness. Hinata muttered, "I don't think I understand what you're saying," and Sasuke observed her out of the corner of his eye, listening to her anxiety. Terra grinned and said, "Just trust us," and they started dragging her along while Sasuke came to a halt. He couldn't simply abandon her. What if she was being abducted? He sighed and went after the three. Before long, the green boy and the blonde girl came to a halt at an amusement park. "The perfect place for some fun and to loosen up a bit," Terra said. "Your friend needs some of these rides." Hinata just tilted her head before they pushed her ahead and she obeyed. Her gaze absorbed the bizarre buildings that bobbed, swung, and twisted, as well as the dazzling, colorful lights. She bowed her head as this location somehow brought back memories of the few festivities Konoha would host. Already, she was starting to become homesick. "So what ride do you want to try first?" Hinata realized how much she missed Naruto's smile as she looked up and saw the changeling grinning at her. She smiled weakly in return, unsure of how to respond to something she didn't comprehend. Terra pointed to the Ferris wheel and said, "How about that one?" Hinata was clearly impressed by its enormity as it extended into the nighttime sky. The changeling smirked and looked at Terra, who gave a tiny giggle. "I think that's a yes, I mean who doesn't like some romantic view," she said. "I think you forgot that she doesn't really have a date with her." Beast Boy smiled and pointed behind him, saying, "Says who?" Mr. Too Cool kept following her all the way here. Terra noticed Sasuke turning away from them and feigning to gaze at a cotton candy seller. "Then be my guest." Before arriving at the Ferris wheel's cabin and opening the door for her, the shapeshifter grabbed the bewildered girl by the hand. Was it necessary for her to enter? She looked at the shapeshifter with confusion. He reassured her with a smile and said, "Come on. It's gonna be fun." She nodded her head softly in response. His communicator started ringing abruptly, so he took it from his belt. "What's up, Robin?" Before his device shut off, Robin's voice said, "It's Plasmus. Come to the museum." He said to his partner, "Trouble," and she gave him a serious look before turning away. Wait here, until we get back, it won't dash. The two titans stared at Hinata bewilderedly as she murmured, "Let us come with you," and then she grinned at them while activating her Byakugan. Terra muttered, "You want to help us?" Sure, why not," but then smiled back at her. Sasuke snarled, "Why do you want to help them?" as he came to a halt farther away before the two titans passed him, Hinata trailing behind them before briefly turning to face him. "Because they are comrades." With a defeated groan, Sasuke followed them. Before leaving for home, he might at least finish some training. They soon reached the battleground, and it appeared that they had arrived on schedule because Plasmus was able to hit Starfire, who was headed straight for Cyborg when he tossed a car. When Terra stopped him by tearing off a piece of asphalt and throwing it at him, pushing him back, he lifted another one. However, he was strong and retreated from the puddle he had become, shooting 3 globs of goo at the newcomers, who fled in disarray. Seeing that Hinata had not gone very far in eliminating the slime monster, Sasuke decided to put an end to this annoyance as soon as possible by activating his Sharingan. She moaned as her hand was drawn in, my hand dash, before Raven enveloped it in dark energy and assisted the girl in escaping her captivity. When she heard the raven-haired newcomer's words, she turned to confront Plasmus. Sasuke yelled, "Chidori," before utilizing chakra-enhanced steps to get closer to the creature and stab it, making it wail in an odd voice while electrical shocks zapped all around it. Sasuke grinned as Plasmus suddenly exploded, smearing the others with pink slime, but his smile vanished when he realized that Plasmus had just divided into 8 tiny versions of himself. He was at least a challenge of some kind. He was going to eliminate the annoyance with his fireball jutsu when his Sharingan detected a distant explosion. What may that have been? It might have been a wonderful training exercise to fight this pink thing, but what if that explosion led him to his scroll? He had to avoid taking that chance. After taking a brief look, Sasuke was happy to see that the others were still preoccupied with the pink object, so he quickly fled from them while channeling his chakra. "Sasuke! I can't let him go alone," Hinata exclaimed, evading another glob of goo as she ran after him. With the help of her Byakugan, she quickly realized he was gone, even seeing to some extent where he was running. "Wait dash!" Raven turned to Terra and used her magic to slam one of the plasmas into the nearest store, interrupting her shout. After avoiding many attacks, she moaned, "Let them go. We can handle this ourselves," and knocked down another one. Beast Boy defended himself by saying, "It's not about handling it, Raven," but Raven squinted at him. Her voice was chilly as she stated, "We don't know anything about them, other than that they don't come from Jump City." The shapeshifter stated, "They are from Konoha," and then she arched an eyebrow. "And do you know where that is?" Raven folded her arms as Beast Boy laughed nervously. She murmured, "I thought so, I didn't trust them anyways, especially that boy," and Raven's remarks made Terra feel oddly enraged. She questioned incredulously, "Just because you don't know where they came from?" Raven squinted at Terra. She remarked, "I can feel it, something's not right. I have a feeling that all this anger and darkness might make him evil. He seems like he doesn't care much about friends," and Terra turned away after experiencing an odd stabbing sensation in her chest. She was moved by Raven's remarks, but not in a positive manner. The shapeshifter snarled, "Raven!" before Robin cut him off. He snarled, "Focus on Plasmus," and threw an explosive disc at a pink glob that was coming. Beast Boy asked, recalling what he had said yesterday, "Didn't you say you managed to beat him? How did Plasmus escape so quickly?" "I did, but someone must have helped him escape," he added, squinting at another Plasmus. Terra's eyes widened in shock as she glanced up at Robin. Her question, then could it be, that Plasmus is just a decoy, caused Robin's eyes to widen. However, why? Sasuke had just arrived to the scene of the crime, having nearly been struck by a car and colliding with another vehicle. The building that had burst had been an electronics store that offered computer hardware and software, but Sasuke was obviously unconcerned with what the establishment sold. The few individuals who appeared to be searching the store caught his attention. Or did they possess the scroll? As he walked into the store, he noticed them turning around, one of them holding a tiny computer chip, but his eyes were soon drawn back to their orange masks and faces. With a level voice, Sasuke said, "Tell me if you have the scroll and I might let you go unharmed." Unfortunately, the figures charged at him because they lacked composure. He evaded them with lightning speed, then switched to attack, hitting one, slicing through the other with his kunai, and impaling another with several shuriken. He noticed sparks shoot from them at that moment, so he went over and removed one of the masks. His eyes widened as he realized they were merely robots, but then he heard footsteps coming and turned to see a fist flying in his direction. He caught the fist before a black and orange mask confronted him, and then Sasuke was startled by a knee to the stomach and launched into the air. However, Sasuke swiftly caught himself and crouching, watching as a tall, masked guy came toward him. "Who do you think you are?" Sasuke questioned, growling, his red eyes narrowing menacingly at the man. He laughed in response, then his voice returned to English. Once more. Was he employed by them? The masked man said, "I'm of no importance, but you can call me Slade," his speech now warped to sound Japanese. He could relate to him. However, how? What is this type of jutsu? Not at all pleased with his composed manner, he growled, "Tell me what's going on. Are you the one that has the scroll?" In that regard, he resembled Orochimaru remarkably, which worried Sasuke. With a yell of rage, Sasuke raced at Slade, dodging a punch and blocking a kick before retaliating. "How about we see if you are worthy of any answers?" he asked. However, Slade was only slightly knocked back before Sasuke became serious and threw a kunai at him. Slade dodged with a head tilt, but was taken aback by how quickly Sasuke reached him. In anticipation of seeing blood, Sasuke buried his Chidori-covered palm in the man's chest. However, he noticed blue sparkles once more. What? And in all of this confusion, he failed to see that the microchip-wielding robot had quietly slipped out of the store. To validate his hypothesis, Sasuke tore off Slade's mask and saw the same mask on a tiny computer screen. Sasuke watched in disbelief as Slade in the screen stated, "Looking for this," while displaying a scroll. How was he able to access it? Before the screen went black, he said calmly, "I think you earned your prize after our little match. Come to the southern part of the city tomorrow, I will await you by the docks." And in a fit of wrath, Sasuke crushed the screen with his fist. Sasuke. His fury was starting to get to him, so he straightened up and tried to regain his breath when Hinata's words drew him back. She said, "What happened?" with a note of concern in her voice as she observed the metal fragments strewn all over the floor. As more footsteps came closer, Sasuke turned to confront the Teen Titans and turned off his Sharingan. He chose to give Hinata her response since he was too furious to fight. "I found the scroll, and it's with a masked man named Slade." The voice of Sasuke was once more warped to sound in English. Before turning back in bewilderment, Hinata heard gasps behind her and said, "Who is Slade?" "Slade?" Robin inquired sharply before approaching Sasuke. Where is he? He yelled in complete rage, and Sasuke narrowed his brows in frustration. Robin grabbed the other boy by the collar after Sasuke yelled, "Get out of my face." Naturally, Sasuke took that as a threat and tried to punch the boy Wonder, but he blocked it. When Robin yelled, "Tell me where he is or I'll make you." Sasuke drew a kunai and pointed it at his enraged face before Raven used her magic to throw Robin to the ground. Raven loomed over him with her arms crossed and asked sharply, "Shouldn't your last encounter with Slade have shown you that it's not wise to run blindly into a fight with him? We have to find out what he is up to." After Raven retorted, "Yeah, but blindly falling into his traps is not how we're supposed to do it," Robin got up and picked himself up. Cyborg questioned, "Do you know what he was doing here? Or what he wants with your scroll?" But all he got were perplexed and irritated looks. Beast Boy repeated, using a variety of hand gestures to make it apparent to both of them, Slade, scroll, but was disappointed to see that Sasuke had turned away. He commanded, "I gotta find him. Hinata, let's go," but she remained motionless. She pointed to Robin and said, Sasuke, I think it's better if we stay with them. This boy seems to know who this Slade is," but Sasuke was not following her instructions. "You mean the boy who just attacked me? Don't tell me you want to stay with the enemy," he replied. She answered resolutely, "If they are the only ones that can help us get to Slade and to get home, yes," and Sasuke was silent for a while. In any case, he needed a place to sleep and had time until tomorrow. "Fine," he sighed. Terra, Beast Boy, and Starfire were the first to erupt in broad smiles after receiving the translation from Cyborg. "Does that mean our new friends will be staying in the tower with us?" Starfire inquired. The shapeshifter said, "You heard right," and the alien squealed loudly and gave the Hyuga a hug as if her life depended on it. What happened?" she inquired, astonished and a little awkward. Terra smiled and said, "You'll stay with us, isn't that great?" but she was met with bewildered looks. "But only until we find Slade," said Raven, who wasn't very excited about it. Cyborg remarked, "And while they stay with us, I could also get to make those translators, before to their departure for home." Hinata questioned, glancing at each of them individually, Where are we going?" Terra said, "Home," and took the girl's hand. Sasuke remained behind, unsure if putting his trust in them would be wise. Beast Boy grumbled, "Come on. We don't have all day," and then pushed the boy like a ram from behind. After giving the boy a death stare, Beast Boy changed back and rushed after the others. He was unwilling to take the chance of losing his teeth. They eventually reached the coast, where Terra and Beast Boy used their abilities independently to cross the water while Raven and Starfire assisted Cyborg and Robin, respectively, in getting a lift across it. Terra called above the roaring wind, "Huh! Beast Boy, look at those two," and the falcon next to her swooped closer to the two who were reportedly running on the sea. What were they doing? Terra attempted to follow the two shinobi by using her rock as a surfboard and dropping from it, landing waist deep with a splash. Realizing that she would be left behind if she attempted to do this correctly, she just followed them. They arrived at the tower quickly and assembled in the common area. Starfire said, "Let me prepare the meal that will fill our hungry stomachs," but Cyborg cut her off. "I'm not sure they can handle any of your food, Star, how about I do the cooking," he said. She objected that, "A little testing will not do any harm," and Cyborg sighed. He spoke more for the squad than the two newcomers when he responded, "Fine, but let's order some pizza in case they don't like it," and fortunately, Starfire agreed. He asked Sasuke and Hinata, and you too? They looked at him bewildered, or in Sasuke's case, uninterested. You can sleep in the common room, he said, before heading to his room to get the new communicators ready. Raven, meanwhile, placed her pizza order before leaving the common area. Sasuke and Hinata busied themselves examining the common room in greater detail. While much of the furniture was also available in Konoha, the TV was enormous, and some of the furniture was oddly shaped and high-tech. Hinata was especially interested in taking in the view from the tower's enormous windows. There was a sense of peace about the view. Beast Boy abruptly joined Terra and Hinata near the window as the sun was already starting to set. Okay, who wants to have a tour of the tower? Questioned the man. Terra laughed and pointed to Sasuke, who had fallen onto the couch and started honing his kunai. Definitely not him, Terra said. Beast Boy shot back, he doesn't know what he's missing out on, but Sasuke glanced at him and said, on with the tour, quickly adding that he had taken Hinata by the hand before narrowing his eyes at his leaving figure. Terra said, have fun, you too, I'll be in my room if you need anything, and then she sighed. She returned to the landscape, and the windowpane mirrored her anxious expression. What was Slade using a scroll for? Would she be included? Before she left into her room, Sasuke noticed that anxious expression. What had happened to her? What made him wonder about it? With a sigh, he rose from the couch and decided to do some training because he couldn't waste time sitting here. As the Green Titan showed the heiress and the changeling every inch of their house, they were strolling around the tower. When they arrived to Raven's chamber, Beast Boy stated, how about we skip this room? Hinata gave him a perplexed look as he simply walked past it. She cocked her head and said, aren't you going to show me this room as well? The shapeshifter turned to face her and smiled nervously. He muttered the final line, you still haven't seen my room yet, and he dragged the still confusion-stricken girl by the arm. I'm sure Raven's in there meditating and she doesn't like it when people just barge into her room, I should know, he said enthusiastically. Knowing she wouldn't get the joke he just told, he said, welcome to my lair, as he entered his room. When Hinata saw a stack of clothing in the center of the room, she muttered, oh, it's nice, while attempting to be courteous, and the changeling laughed in embarrassment. He said, yeah, I haven't had time to clean up, as he hurried to stuff his pile into the closet. Just ignore the dash. Beast Boy turned around as Cyborg's voice said, guys. Look what I got, and he was flung a new communicator. Hinata nearly dropped hers before glancing at it bewilderedly and asking, what is it, as she examined it. Cyborg whispered into his device as her English voice abruptly came on. This is the T-communicator, now you communicate with us with no problems, right? She grinned and said, I can understand you, when his voice, twisted to sound Japanese, emerged from her communicator. Cyborg smiled and walked out of the room, saying, thought so, I'll just give this to your friend and then, you'll all have one. Beast Boy laughed and said, how cool is that? Now we don't have to play pantomime to talk to each other, and she grinned a little as his voice played on her communicator. Beast Boy boasted, hey, I haven't even told you a joke yet, not realizing how simple it would be to make her laugh. But before he could say a single thing, her smile disappeared. She questioned, Beast Boy. Who is this, Slade? He was momentarily confused before he scowled slightly and realized that he had the scroll they were searching for. He's bad news, that's for sure. The changeling noted a frightened look on her face as she heard the translation. Is he strong? He said, strong enough to make Robin almost his apprentice, recalling how they had to battle their boss. But, didn't Robin hate this Slade? At least it seemed so, Beast Boy said, not intending for the wordplay to be humorous in any way. He still does. But he was being forced to work for him, and trust me, it hurt us as much as it did him. After all, Slade wasn't one to play around. Her palms became fists and her brows furrowed. He abruptly said, "Cheer up," and pulled Hinata out of her troubling thoughts. "I bet your friend knows how to stay away from him. I mean, he does that with almost everyone," he continued, laughing, and Hinata couldn't help but chuckle. Even though she didn't know Sasuke well, she came to the realization that this assertion wasn't entirely incorrect throughout their time on the assignment together. She abruptly asked, "Can you tell me more about you and your friends? If Sasuke knows more about you, maybe he will be friendlier towards you," she explained, recalling that he had ultimately warmed up to Sakura and Naruto. "Perhaps this team will experience the same thing." After the pizzas arrived and Starfire successfully gathered everyone around the table, except for Sasuke, who insisted on finishing some training, Hinata decided to persuade him to eat. He was practicing on the island the tower stood on when she left the room after taking a piece of the so-called pizza, and placing it on the plate. She observed him for a minute as he used his fireball jutsu, launching a huge, blazing ball of flame into the distance. She called out to him, "Sasuke," and he remained motionless for a minute. "I brought food for you, it's called pizza," she added, and when he didn't respond, she approached him carefully to offer it to him. He snarled, "I'm busy," without even glancing at her. The heiress objected, saying, But, you haven't eaten since we arrived," but Sasuke decided to keep quiet and proceeded to remove a few kunai and toss them toward a tree to his left. Before attempting to contact him one final time, she put his food by a rock and said, "Did you receive the communicator?" He snarled, "Not interested, so I left it by the couch, stop asking me questions," and sprang into the air to hit the tree with a shuriken. Feeling that her efforts were in vain, Hinata turned away and dropped her head. "Can you now tell us where you are from?" Robin's voice sounded abruptly, and Sasuke and Hinata turned to face him. When his voice came back from Hinata's communicator, it sounded Japanese. When Sasuke responded, "Why should I?" Robin's brows twisted in frustration. "Because I'm your only lead to Slade. I don't need you, he wants me to come to him myself," Sasuke said, turning to face the lad with the raven hair and squinting his eyes. With a hint of disdain, Robin walked up to the boy and stood a little distance away. "And it's probably a trap. Slade is a manipulative villain and he knows when to strike," Robin said. "No one could construct a trap for a Uchiha." "He doesn't know who he's trying to fool," the Uchiha retorted. The boy wonder said ominously, "He might know more about you than you think," and Hinata put her palm to her chest. Sasuke sneered, "What would you know about this?" and Robin became enraged at the boy's conceit. He said violently, "Because I used to fall for his trap. I was his apprentice once," before clenching his fists in remembrance of his ordeal. "He made me work for him, and hurt my friends," he added in a voice that was lower. Suddenly, Sasuke recalled Orochimaru and his pledge to give him more power if he obeyed all of his orders. Both Hinata and Robin gazed at him curiously as his hand automatically moved up to his neck, where his cursed seal was inscribed. "Criminals like these are nothing new where I'm coming from, I know how to handle them," Sasuke responded after he withdrew his hand in response to their intense gazes. Sasuke narrowed his brows as Robin said suspiciously, "It doesn't seem so." "That's because I'm not as weak-willed as you." "What? Terra had observed their conversation from the tower's windows as Sasuke walked past the furious Robin and returned into the tower. The Avenger had passed the others to reach the restroom when he heard footsteps behind him. He feigned to ignore it and proceeded to the restroom. The footsteps paused in front of the restroom before gradually disappearing. Did they watch him? That game can be played by two people. After turning on his Sharingan and leaving the restroom, he saw that the blonde girl had just entered her room at the end of the hallway. He followed her slowly and stopped just before her doors closed, noticing that she was sitting in front of an odd device known as a laptop. She raised her head as he passed her chamber, and his eyes grew wide as he saw a name on the screen that escaped his Jujutsu. Since she hadn't left the room, she didn't notice him. After seeing that name on the screen, Sasuke tried to think, but ultimately he chose to approach directly. He knocked on the metal door, which quickly slid open to reveal the blonde girl standing in front of him. What do dash? Sasuke entered without waiting for her to finish speaking. Hey, you can't just dash. As the doors closed, he inquired, who is Slade? Terra was surprised by his inquiry. What if he was aware of? This time, she tried to find out what Slade had been planning or what they were going to do about it. Was that what you were speaking about with Robin? She said. What if it was? Look, I'm not much help on Slade, Robin probably knows more dash. Abruptly, a grin tugged across Sasuke's features. He murmured softly, you're lying, your expression says it all, and Terra squinted. What? She said, folding her arms, you need to have your eyes examined. You probably know more about him than even that Robin, am I right? He said, tell me what I need to know, and I might stay quiet about what you're doing behind their backs. Terra's brows knitted, and she had to restrain herself from slamming a boulder against the wall. However, that wasn't required because he had already turned aside and left her room when Hinata unexpectedly showed up by the door. She stumbled, the others are asking for you, hoping he wouldn't be upset that she had followed him here. However, he felt happy after his brief chat with Terra. He muttered, whatever, and then he walked back to the kitchen, Hinata and Terra trailing behind him. Cyborg laughed uneasily as Starfire gave him a frown. Finally you could make it too. Starfire was about to force her alien lunch down my throat, Cyborg said. She grinned broadly and held up 2 bowls of green stew to the 2 shinobi, saying, no, I just offered you some but you decided to rudely decline, but I'm sure Hinata and Sasuke would like some of my Tamaranian dish. As they both gazed at their food, Hinata inquired courteously, what is it? Starfire said, burplup, but Hinata didn't think the information was particularly helpful and started fumbling with a spoon since it appeared that they were chopstick substitutes. Sasuke said, I'd rather try the pizza, and Hinata felt a wave of relief wash over her before Starfire let out a defeated sigh. She responded somberly, please help yourself, and Terra tried to lift her spirits by offering her plate. Starfire instantly placed a big lump of the stew on it while grinning broadly. Realizing they were more hungry than they had anticipated, both shinobi went for the pizza with great anticipation. After taking his first mouthful, even Sasuke had a ghostly smile. He mumbled, not bad, and Hinata nodded. She grinned and said, it tastes similar to the pork ramen Naruto had invited me once to, which strangely made Sasuke's chest ache. Was he already missing that moron? Can you tell me how you did that? What? Hinata asked, turning to the voice speaking to her with a hint of bewilderment. Sasuke felt Beast Boy narrow his brows at the inquisitive animal/boy as he said, you ran on water, how did you do that? That was, chakra, It's internal energy, which consists of mental and physical energy. And hand signs combined with concentrating chakra helps us create jutsu, she said with a frightened smile. Jutsu? Inquired Starfire, who was now also intrigued. The veins around Hinata's eyes swelled out as she stammered, you know, like my Byakugan, adding, I can see through walls and chakra points with my Byakugan. Sasuke rolled his eyes when the shapeshifter said, no way. What are chakra points? He couldn't just give them all the details, and furthermore, he wanted to help Hinata conserve her energy for when she truly needed it. Sasuke asked, and who are you? I don't think shinobi even exist in your world, in an attempt to get any of them to share a tiny bit of personal information. After introducing himself, he listed each of his teammates and briefly discussed their abilities. Not in Jump City, but we are superheroes. I'm Robin, their leader, he said. You and that green boy don't seem like real heroes to me, Sasuke said before Beast Child slammed his fist against the table. I'm surprised how you got to be leader with such mediocre skills, Sasuke grinned, and Robin scowled at his conceit once more. This green boy just told you his name. And I don't see you being able to turn into animals, he said. Sasuke laughed. That's because I don't want to turn into fake animals, try to get the color right at least. Beast Boy began, already rising from his chair, news flash dash. Hinata broke up an impending altercation by saying, this pizza is really good, and fortunately, the disputes ended. Before he could catch the monster looking at him, Sasuke busied himself with another piece, but she immediately went back to eating. This group was more bizarre than Rock Lee's hairstyle. Surprisingly, Raven was the first to depart after eating. Robin came right after, and then Beast Boy got up and went to the game station, turning it on. He turned to Terra and exclaimed, who's up for some games? I'll make sure you won't win this time, he said. Terra went to the two shinobi and mocked, saying, let me see you try, and the winner plays against Sasuke and Hinata, how about it? He said, I don't know what this weird thing is, but the only challenge that would be in my interest is a fight, and stood up. When the changeling asked, why would you think it isn't a fight? Sasuke turned to see that he and Terra had already selected figures, people, off the TV before a fight was declared. When the two characters started fighting, Sasuke scowled in frustration. He had believed for a second that he intended a serious fight. Terra remarked, you're losing your touch, Beast Boy, as she kept pressing buttons on her joystick, just before the changeling grinned. He said, just wait, and then used a combination on her character. I told you. Who's next? Terra exclaimed, pointing to the empty spot next to her because the changeling had moved behind the couch, but she hadn't lost yet and had found a gap before killing him and cheering. Reluctantly, Hinata sat down beside her, much to Sasuke's dismay. Didn't she want to return home? Furthermore, how could she be certain that they were trustworthy? Before departing the common area, Sasuke mumbled, playing games won't save you in a real fight, and Hinata gave him a worried glance. Don't worry. Maybe he just needs time, Terra said, resting a hand on her shoulder instead. Hinata reluctantly returned the smile, and the game did make her laugh a few times. However, the thing that made Hinata laugh only made Uchiha sad, as he heard their laughter and applause behind closed doors. He was starting to miss home. Perhaps, similar to Naruto and Sakura, he needed to make an effort to get along with them in order to trust them. Perhaps they could become buddies as well. He sighed and carried on walking down the corridors until he heard his name behind one of the doors and halted. Robin continued, you know that this happened before," he added in a low voice, and Starfire lowered her head. Raven said that he was untrusting, and possibly evil. "I don't want to believe her as well, but since he had an encounter with Slade before, you have to be careful," Robin warned. He added, "I refuse to believe it too, but I will be sure to keep a watchful eye on him and will inform the others as well," just as she was ready to leave Robin's room. "But don't let Sasuke find out." Sasuke heard her footsteps and proceeded to move quickly until he came to a staircase that led upstairs. The raven-haired man clenched his fists in rage, but just because she didn't trust him didn't imply that the others should either. He had climbed the steps expecting to find quiet, but Raven was on the roof, meditating. Sensing his rage, Raven opened her eyes and said, "You seem restless, did anything happen?" Sasuke looked at her with hatred and didn't understand. He snarled, "This is all your fault." Raven saw him dash past her and descend the tower to reach the island. Raven was alarmed by the rage she saw in him. Something wasn't quite right. After racing down the tower, Sasuke briefly believed he saw Itachi's reflection in the windowpane and closed his eyes until he touched down on the island. He screamed in rage and slammed his fist against the tree he had been exercising on before. Robin wasn't needed by him. The scroll would be his own. The minutes passed as Sasuke continued to train, hurling weapons and fireballs into the air in an unrelenting attempt to vent his rage. He wouldn't be fooled by Slade like he was the last time. His palm was beginning to shine with blue lightning as he performed his Chidori, and the boom reverberated around the island. Although Kakashi stated that he could only use it twice, he would make sure to use it at least 3 times so that Slade and anybody else who dared to stand in his path would be hit by his next blow. At first, he was unaware of the footsteps, and he only stirred when Hinata yelled his name. The lights gradually went out before he turned to face her, his crimson pupils narrowing. "Why you've been training for hours, it's getting late," she whispered as she lowered her sight for a moment, and he saw that darkness had already fallen and the moon was already visible. "I don't care," she reasoned, "but the others are getting worried, you need rest," and Sasuke felt his fury increasing once more. He spit out, "Let them worry all they want. I don't care what they think, and you better not either if you want to get back to Konoha," which caused Hinata to wince. What was causing his rage? She objected, "But they are trying to help us," and he whirled around with his fists clenched. "Do you really think they are trying to help us? They don't even trust us." "How can you say so?" she said, not thinking Beast Boy and Terra had any doubts about them because they had been so encouraging to them. With hatred in every syllable, he snarled, "I can see it from their faces. They don't admit it, but I know what they're thinking." She murmured softly, "I can't believe you," and Sasuke became irritated with her. Before passing her and returning to the tower, he questioned incredulously, "So you rather believe them than me? Even when I heard them myself?" At least she was correct to get some sleep. If he were to battle Slade, he would need it. Feeling embarrassed that she didn't trust Sasuke, Hinata lowered her gaze. He wouldn't want to hurt her, but were the others truly their enemies? She had to confirm, so she furrowed her brows. The changeling and Terra were still on the couch when she returned to the tower and the common area. The changeling inquired, "Is he still not coming down from his high horse?" Sasuke and Hinata's looks became solemn before Terra's, and Beast Boy's became interested and worried. Terra inquired, "What's wrong, Hinata?" Their eyes widened as she said, "Do you trust us?" "Of course we do," Beast Boy said right away, giving her a comforting smile. Then she said, "But he said you wouldn't show it, and I can't imagine you lying, but I wanted to be sure, and Tara looked away for a moment. Since she wasn't entirely trusted either, she understood who might not trust them. Tara answered slowly, I think I know who you're talking about, and she was afraid that Sasuke wasn't the only one who was on the verge of being expelled. The changeling responded, don't tell me you think it's Raven, and she gave him a serious look. So, we should have a talk with her, she asked. Before she got up and Hinata was ready to accompany them, she said, no, first let's talk with Robin, he's the leader after all, right? Beast Boy put a hand on her shoulder. He grinned at her and said, let's handle this on our own first, I think it's better that way. She nodded slowly, and he continued, we'll let you know what he said, before she saw them leave the hallway. She stood there for a while, unsure of what to do next, before deciding to wait and use the game station to distract herself from this issue for a bit. In the meantime, Tara and the changeling came up in front of Robin's chamber and knocked on his door before it opened. He looked into the corridor for a moment before asking, good that you're here, I wanted to have a talk with you, where is Sasuke? The changeling answered, I don't know but I heard he's pretty mad about something, and raised an eyebrow in his direction. Tara remarked, Hinata said he thinks you don't trust him and now he's been literally avoiding all of us, as their commander folded his arms across his chest. He said, almost matter-of-factly, Raven's been sensing something about him, don't you remember? And until now, he didn't seem like he warmed up to any of you, and Tara briefly averted his eyes. So? Inquired the changeling. He responded, usually, she's not wrong on what she senses, and Tara experienced the same pain in her chest. Given that she doesn't seem to warm up to Raven, Raven appeared to feel the same way about her. The changeling smiled slightly and said, until now, she is, and besides, as long as we keep him away from Slade's dirty traps, he'll be fine, right? Robin stroked the back of his neck. The changeling gave him the thumbs up as he said, I guess you're right, but try to keep an eye on him, just to be on the safe side, okay? Sensing that their conversation was coming to an end, Tara left the room, followed by Beast Boy. The changeling paused when he saw her anxious expression and said, hey, it wasn't so bad, I actually thought he'd dash, Tara. You okay? She gave him a small smile and said, huh? Oh, yeah, but her concern remained. Beast Boy. Do you think he's evil? She queried, and he raised an incredulous eyebrow. He continued, why are you so worried about him? He'll be fine, with a little effort in his voice and a little bewilderment in Tara's face. She whispered, I mean, because Raven can sense feelings and stuff, and she noticed his apprehensive laugh. Dude. No worries. Just because he acts like Raven or is obsessed with training like Robin, doesn't make him evil or something, he replied with a little grin. Before they choose to play another game on the game station, Tara managed to return a slight smile before taking his hand and giving it a light squeeze. Glad you think so, she remarked, and the changeling felt his face warm up a bit. However, upon arriving at the operations room, they observed Sasuke and Hinata seated side by side on the couch while Hinata instructed him on how to operate the controller prior to starting a match. Did Sasuke wish to engage in video gaming? When he whispered, I'm just playing one round, and only because I need a distraction from the others, Hinata stifled a laugh. She grinned and continued to push the buttons, but she noticed that Sasuke quickly caught up and ultimately defeated her character. Okay, I was starting to get tired of playing, she said. He was really good at these video games and picked things up quickly. She occasionally wished she were like him, or Naruto, in order to demonstrate to herself that she was capable of becoming a kunoichi. When he noticed her slightly dejected expression, Sasuke put his controller down and said, "I'm tired, I'll ask the others for an extra blanket, mattress, and pillows," before getting up as Hinata switched off the odd gaming gadget. Sasuke turned away after receiving the blankets and pillows, but Beast Boy beat him to them and had already held them out for him. After hearing the translation from his communicator, the changeling grinned broadly and skipped back to his room to inform Terra of what had transpired. "Thanks," he whispered before leaving. Before laying out the mattress, he gave Hinata a blanket and a pillow. "I'll sleep on the mattress," he said, and before she could object, he heard her ask incredulously, "Why?" "I'm not going to sit on the couch. I don't know what this couch might turn into, so I'm not gonna sleep on it," he said, somewhat surprising the heiress. However, she accepted it without realizing that he had said it primarily because he felt Hinata wanted to sleep on the sofa and the mattress wasn't as comfy. In addition, he had slept on worse things. After they were both tucked in, Hinata smiled slightly. All she had known of Sasuke was that he was a shy boy who didn't want to talk to anyone. However, this Sasuke was different from him. He was aloof but kind in his own way. "I'm sure we will find the scroll soon, the Titans will know how to get it, I'm sure of it," she said almost to herself before closing her eyes, but what she said made the raven-haired boy silently angry, and he didn't want Hinata to see him that way before turning away from her. He always felt like he was being watched, like a hunter stalking his prey. However, somewhere during that feeling, darkness surrounded him before a very familiar voice taunted him, his brother's voice. "You're too weak, you don't have enough hatred." His eyes widened as he noticed that the couch was unoccupied, but first they popped open as his heart thumped in his chest and he looked to Hinata. Where had she gone? Was she abducted? No, he needed to confirm before drawing any conclusions. He got up and went outside after noticing that the sun was going to rise. He heard shuffling and grunting sounds in the distance, so he followed them until he saw Hinata repeatedly slamming her palm into the tree he had been practicing on. Her training at this early hour and her intense focus as she delivered blow after blow startled him. However, she stopped, catching her breath, and Sasuke stepped back. Slade wasn't going to bring her into this, he wanted him, not her. He turned and left without anyone noticing, but Hinata heard his fading footsteps and followed him, spotting him beginning to cross the lake to Jump City. However, he heard her approach and abruptly halted, saying icily, "Don't follow me." Hinata sensed something was off after hearing that sentence, and she knew what it was. "You're going to Slade?" "That's why I said don't follow me," he continued after a little pause.